My name's Ben Ricks. I'm one of the owners of Ben Stick Brewing. There's four of us doing this together. Ben Stick Brewing, we started back in 2015 was the first beers we sold at stores. And so we've been around for 7 years or so at this point. We started in a little industrial bay up on Fort Road. We just had this teeny tiny little brewery that brewed about 400 liters at a time, so that's like 8 kegs. We were referred to as a nano brewery, so we were even smaller than a micro brewery. And since then, we've moved to this bigger space here just south of White Avenue in Edmonton, and we love it here. We've got this nice big tap room now. At our old space, we were all brewers. We just wanted to make beer and send it to liquor stores to sell and work Monday to Friday. But being brewers and not business people, we were quick to find out that a tap room is an important part of the old business plan. So we only had 4 bar stools way up there on the north end. And so moving here and having room for people to drink beers and bring their dogs and play shuffleboard, eat cheeses at the bar. We're really loving it here now. So we picked this location when we moved in. The Monolith, the Blind Enthusiasm's mixed ferment project, was across the street already. So we definitely went and asked their blessing to see if we could move in across the street here. And we knew that the types of beer they were making and what we're doing are complement each other but are totally different, and we thought it would be a fun way to join the neighborhood. And then since then, Sea Change has moved a production facility in next door. Ale Architect and Odd Company are a couple blocks away. Long Roof is just a block away from that. So there's been a lot of more breweries being added since we moved in, and it's awesome. It makes for, a Saturday if you want to go grab an Uber somewhere and try out a bunch of beers. You might as well come down to Happy Beer Street here. So, that's been really great. Ben Stick Brewing, originally we thought we would, have tap handles that were branches, but by the time we incorporated, there was another brewery doing that. And, the Ben Stick, like there's a wizard in our logo that's holding a mash paddle with a bend in it, and the 4 of us who started this place, we brewed at Alley Cat, and you always stirred the mash by hand, and the mash paddle always had kind of a bend in it from getting mashes unstuck, and so bent stick kind of refers to the mash paddle that you stir the mash with. So when we started, everything we brewed was something different. We were just brewing new beers all the time and having fun. And as I sort of mentioned earlier, the 4 of us being brewers and not business people, we learned that was really frustrating for restaurants and liquor stores. We bring them beers, and then they say, "Oh, that was great. We'll take 2 more cases." And then we'd say, "Nope, that beer's gone. We have 6 different beers since the last time you ordered." And so eventually, some of our beers did become core beers that we brewed all the time. So we have Electric Boogaloo, a hazy IPA that's sort of a reference to an 80s breakdancing movie. We've got BS Wit, our Belgian wheat beer. It's a nice, easy drinking option. We have Haymaker. It's a wheated Pilsner. And a amber ale called Amber Waves. We also have a coffee amber ale brewed with coffee from a local roaster that we're pals with, and that's kind of a core beer too usually. So we do that, and then we still specialize in pumping out a new beer sort of every 2 weeks kind of thing, and have a lot of fun cooking up new recipes all the time. In the summer we brew more sort of fruity light beers for the hot weather, and in the winter time we do a lot of sort of darker beers. And we have a stout that we brew every winter called 4:30 p.m. and it's called that because that's when it gets dark around here. And so 4:30 p.m. stout, it's a 4.5% stout. And when we started brewing it, most of the stouts around were 6 and 7%. People were brewing big strong stouts, and we wanted one that if you're putting in a shift on a bar stool from the time it gets dark at 4:30, have a few of them without falling off. So it's definitely a collaboration between all of us. Like all of us have brewed it to some extent, and Quinn, who's brewing behind me, she cooked up. She's kind of newer to it, but she came up with a light lager called Two Beer Lunch. That's been a real sort of hit for us lately, and the other four of us, myself, Lisa, she used to brew at Yellowhead Brewing in town, and Patrick and myself used to work at Alley Cat, and Cole is a really avid home brewer, and so we definitely work together to come up with recipes, and that's the fun part of the job for sure.
Here's the brewery part. We don't have a wall between the tap room and the brewery, and that was a thing really important to us when we were building this space, because when I go to breweries, I like to feel like I'm in it and smell all the stinky smells and see all the sights. So our old brewery was a 3.5 barrel brew house. This is a 15 barrel brew house, so it's a pretty significant upgrade. Our old tanks were half the size of these smaller tanks, and so now our small tanks are twice as big as our old ones. But this is still a pretty small system in the scheme of things. Like, you could see this in a brew pub. It's not a very big brewery. I'm sure you'll see other bigger breweries on the tour. And so this one it's a 3-vessel brew house. So that means we mash the grain, or yeah, I'll take you through the brewing process really quick, I guess. So when you ferment beer, yeast eats sugar and makes alcohol and CO2 is a very basic formula. But so first, the sugar in beer comes from grain, malted barley. Sugar in wine, you get that from grape juice. For mead, it's honey. For cider, it's apple juice. In beer, it's barley. And so the farmers grow the barley. I grew up on a farm near Wetaskiwin, and we ship barley from there to Hogarth Malting, and they malt it for us. And malting means they wet the seed and then they let it sprout. And then once the seed sprouts, it's kind of mobilizing those starches into fermentable sugars. And then you put the seed in an oven and you kill that poor little baby sprout. And so once it's kilned, then it's ready to be used in brewing. And so we mill the grain, so we just crack it open so we can access the sugars inside. The grain goes into the mash tun, where this is sort of the extra step where in wine or cider, yeast ferments. You just add the yeast directly and it ferments the sugar. In brewing, we have to mash first. So we put the barley at about 65 degrees Celsius, depending on the beer recipe. And there's an enzyme that breaks down the sugar chains into shorter chains that yeast can eat. And that's about the scienciest part. Then we move the mash over to, this is a lauter tun. A lot of breweries will have 2 vessels, and so you'll rinse the grains in the mash tun. But this one, we can move the mash into the lauter tun, rinse that tasty wort, it's called, out of the grain. And then we can start a second mash if we're brewing a lot of beer in a day. So we rinse the grain over here in the lauter tun, then it goes over into the kettle, and then the kettle is where we boil it with hops. So we boil beers for at least 90 minutes to get rid of off flavors, and then you add hops at different times depending on if you want bitterness or more so flavor and aroma. You just add the hops during different times in the boil depending on the recipe, and then you cool it in to sort of room temperature so that you're not cooking the yeast, and then you add the yeast, and the yeast eats the sugar and makes tasty beer. And so yesterday I brewed a batch of Porch Swing. It's a beer that uses peach dragon fruit rooibos tea from a local tea maker called the Tea Grow. And that one, I guess it's actually over in this tank here. And so you can see that yeast is busy eating sugars, and one of the byproducts is the CO2 bubbling in the bucket here. And so, yeah, that's a beer that was brewed yesterday. Today, Quinn is brewing a batch of Amber Waves Amber Ale. And yeah, that's sort of the brew house. These are the bright tanks where once the beer's done fermenting, we leave the yeast and maybe hops if we dry hop the beer in the cone there, and we pump the beer off into these packaging tanks. And this is where the beer is carbonated and it sort of clarifies. And this is where we can or keg from. And then this is our little canning line that someone stands on one end and feeds empty cans on all day, and then someone on this end pulls the full ones off, and we weigh them to make sure there's the right amount of beer in them. And it's a little bit tedious, but it works for us so far. And then we're actually still, the pinch point is we're still labeling cans by hand. So this is another laborious task, but this is a can of, we brewed a collaboration with Long Roof just down the street. And this was a strawberry rhubarb kettle sour that we got some rhubarb from people in the neighborhood and brewed this beer together. This is a fun label. It really buzzes, kind of almost gives you a headache when you're staring at them all day. But we're excited to release that in the next couple weeks. But yeah, we spend a lot of time sitting here hand labeling cans.
So, being for brewers and not business people, we didn't really have much of a tap room, and so original plan really was sort of focused on packaging beer and sending it to stores. And so originally we packaged beer in bombers, those big 650 milliliter bottles, and those worked really well for us for a while. But that was our main outlet for beer, and eventually the industry, the tall can 4-packs, that's sort of the preferred format. So eventually we saved up and got a little canner and switched to cans. But we've always had packaged product, which served us well during the pandemic. We didn't have to pivot and try and find shelf spaces. We already had those, and we didn't have much of a hospitality business at our old location. So this new tap room wasn't affected too much by the pandemic, and we were lucky enough that we already had beers in cans to deliver to people's houses and that sort of thing. We can, so in a day we have this little canner. It's like a My First canner. It's a little 3-head unit, and we can get all the beer out of a 30 hectoliter tank, so 3,000 liters. We can can that in a day, but it does make for a long, tedious day. But that's sort of the max for what we can do, like in 8 to 10 hours, sort of thing. We were lucky enough to, like, there is a law that changed in Alberta in 2013, and that's why it seems like we all had the same good idea all at once. And so we were lucky enough to be one of the first breweries starting up after that rule change. And so we've got some established shelf spots at liquor stores, and then the little sort of craft oriented, the good little liquor stores are great about ordering all of our seasonals that we're pumping out, because people always want something new, and so that works really well for us. But we're not looking to take over the world. We're pretty happy with having tap handles here and there at some cool little pubs and restaurants that have supported us for a long time. And I'd say that the growth for a small brewery like us is it's not too hard. But if you're looking to have 3 tap handles in every bar in town or every bar in the province, that can be really tough. But the more the industry grows and the more breweries there are, I think the meaning of local changes a bit. So maybe 5 years ago, when an Alberta brewery had tap handles all over the province, that's local, they're just a couple hours away. But the more of us that pop up, local becomes, that's my brewery down the street, like we're in a neighborhood called Ritchie, and then there's breweries a few blocks away that are in Hazeldean, and they have a fun little Springfield, Shelbyville, like, oh no, that's Hazeldean's brewery, this is, and so for what our goals are, which is just to grow a little bit and be comfortably having fun making beer, there's plenty of room for that for sure. We're lucky in that Alberta farmers grow some of the best malt barley in the world, so that's something unique to the Alberta brewing industry. Is that there's a few big international companies that most people get their malt from, but here in Alberta, some farmers do micro malting as well, and so they make specific products for our needs. And it's almost like if you were a painter and everyone's painting with the same colors. Like you can make all these different pictures, but we've got some shades here in Alberta that aren't available to other people in the world. So we do try and use small companies for malt whenever it's possible. But sometimes when you're brewing, a classic European style beer, it's fun to also get the fancy German malt and that sort of thing. But no, Alberta is awesome for malt, and the climate for growing hops might not exactly be the best depending on the hop variety, but I know that's an industry that's growing a little bit right now too. So yeah, we try and we make a living because people choose to spend their beer money on local beer, and so we try and do the same thing with ingredients too. Yeah.
Yeah, so I could turn on the lights back here, but so this is the grain RAR Malting. They're in Alex, Alberta. They are a big company, but that's where we get a lot of our base malt. And Hogarth, they're new, they're local. They do fancy floor malted stuff. They hand deliver. And this is actually grain that my brother and dad grew south of Wetaskiwin, and they let us take it to them in small batches, and they'll malt it for us so that it's usable. And yeah, Red Shed Malting, they're another popular one that we use their biscuit malt in a lot of things. They call that's like the Alberta brewing industry's Frank's Red Hot sauce. Like a lot of people put that in a lot of things. It gives a very nice toasty malt character. And this is just where we wash kegs and store some cans. There's some long roof kegs. They send us a little bit of change, and we wash kegs for them because they don't have a keg washer yet. And
that's cool. Yeah, I think maybe 5-10 years ago there was this using adjuncts like that, wheat and rice. It was that was one of the way we put down the big macro breweries. It's like, oh, they're not using all barley, they're using rice and stuff like that. But there's been a good wave of rice lagers in the scene lately that people are really liking. Like there's some larger breweries will actually just use sugar as a fermentable, which is kind of cutting a corner unless you're doing a couple specific, classic Belgian beer styles. But using rice or corn, depending on the beer, could actually add to it. And that was sort of some mud that we used to sling at the big breweries. But whatever ingredients make a beer whatever your goal is, yeah, we've got no problem with trying out ingredients like that. But all of our beers are predominantly barley, and they're not watered down. Like a big brewery might make a strong concentrated batch of beer and then water it down to make bigger volume, and then you can produce more beer in a smaller space. So we don't do any cheating like that, but we've got nothing against rice and corn and wheat. Yeah. Yeah, I'd say we used to look to, BC was a few years ahead of us, and the Pacific Northwest. We used to look at breweries, sort of what was the new fun beers coming out of the hot craft beer places. But Alberta's gone to the point where you look to your peers and your neighbors to see what they're doing, and we all kind of push each other a little bit. And we do draw a lot of inspiration just from like historical beers. We tend to like making some Belgian styles, especially in the winter, stronger Belgian type beers. So there's always fun new things to make, but there's a reason why certain beer styles have been around for hundreds of years, because because they're good and they're perfected. And we really like sort of emulating a lot of those too. Yeah, what have we learned? Well, we learned that being able to pour pints for people is important for the old business part of the story. Um, we've made pretty good beers through the whole 7 years, and so we always talk about the beers have been going good, but the business part has been limping behind the whole time, and maybe it's finally starting to catch up. But we've learned, yeah, the importance of having a tap room, and as far as other mistakes, we've done little like beer centric mistakes. We have a Baltic porter called Baltic Star Galacta Porter, and that's a big, strong, dark lager. And so lager's fermented at a low temperature, and I brewed that one, and I set the temperature on the wrong tank. And then so we came back, and it had won a couple Canadian Brewing Awards, so it's got to be good. You can't say that and not turn out. But so we had some neighbors, Ford Distilling in Fort Saskatchewan. They took it and distilled it and put it in some oak barrels, and then we made a little batch of Baltic Star Galacta whiskey, we called it. And also during the pandemic, we had a bunch of kegs, since bars were closed, kegs of our IPA that were too old, and so we just hit that same button again and went and saw our friends at the distillery, and they distilled the IPA and made a really interesting gin out of it. And so we definitely make mistakes fairly regularly, but there's often fun ways you can lean on your friends to make them better. Yeah, so we did this as an evening and weekend project for years. Now we all do work here full time. When we built this new location, we and all of the materials got more expensive during COVID. We dug a pretty deep hole with expanding this place, but this neighborhood has come out and been so supportive of us, and things are looking like we're on track to dig out of our hole and make a nice little living here. So the business, yeah, we've got a lot of people we owe a lot of money to, but the business is profitable, and we're doing just fine. See? So once people find out that instead of going to your same pub and ordering your same type of beer every time you go for a beer, when you learn that you can go somewhere and try something new every time, and maybe you've had Bent Stick's new beer this week, but then you move on to Ale Architect and Long Roof and the Monolith, and you can try every time you come here. You can try new things all day, and so it turns, I like going out and have beers with my buddies, to that extra level of there's something more interesting for you to visit about and to experience. And then once you have that enthusiasm over the beer, you get to, like, we draw a very diverse crowd. It's not just the sort of hip white Ave crowd. We've got older folks from the neighborhood. We've got people who work at the other sort of mechanic shops down the street here, and the cross section of Edmonton that can be sitting in this room at any one time is pretty cool. So I think that shows that craft beer and just trying new flavors appeals to everybody. You go to a lot of bars in town where it's a very specific crowd of each bar, but here it's not like that, and we get a real kick out of seeing that community come together and interact with each other in this room. I mean, I think it is important to a point. We don't want to be, way cheaper than everyone else. Everyone's decided on their price point for certain reasons, but we also feel that, especially like in our tap room in particular, there's no food. Like, we just have cheesies and pretzels and sealed snacks, and you can order in pizza. But if you're coming in here and drinking some beers, and you're not getting a fancy meal with them, and we try and keep the prices very reasonable at our spot. and having a couple base beers that someone from the neighborhood won't be alienated by a big expensive pint. And so we've got a couple beers that are priced about as low as you'd find around town anywhere. And then if you want to get adventurous and try the weird and wacky, more exciting stuff, it goes up from there. But I wouldn't say we're exactly going around and staring at everybody's board and doing too much math about it, but we're just doing what works for us. Having Happy Beer Street or things like that, the Hot Pocket, great breweries up there, just north of us. It's really helpful to, I think, get people to travel from a little past just our local neighborhood. If you want to try a bunch of craft beers on a Saturday, instead of having to jump all over town to a bunch of different breweries, you can hop in an Uber or whatever and cruise down to 99th and being able to have little tasters at each brewery all day, I think is really helpful for us. And we definitely get people asking pretty often about, oh, when's there too many? But so far it just seems like the more the merrier, and the more breweries that move in, the bigger the draw is to come check us out. And it is really handy having Sea Change next door. Like, it's happened more times than I can count on my fingers, and we've only been here for about a year, that we're canning something and we're out of cans, and we just zip next door and borrow a pallet of cans, or they'll borrow some malt, or our pals at Long Roof down the street, they don't have a keg washer yet, so we wash their kegs for them. And it's really helpful community for if you're a disorganized business owner too, to be able to get people to make up for each other's shortcomings. But yeah, Happy Beer Street, it brings people in, and it's fun to be around people who are excited about making beer like you are. And so on the branding, like when four of us got together 7 years ago, and my partner Jenna, she's actually a designer, and so she makes all of our labels and that sort of thing. And we sort of just met, and she's like, oh, I could probably help design the branding for the brewery. And so we had a little design meeting, and she was like, so what's your vision for the brand? What's it going to be? And all we really had, we'd had a few beers in us, so we'd want like a delivery van with a big 80s sort of wizard mural on it, and to cruise around town delivering kegs. And she was sort of like, well, potions and alchemy, like that's kind of brewing, like that could work. And by the next day we'd gone full wizard with it. And sometimes people expect us to be more of a sort of fantasy themed kind of brewery because of the logo, but that's people ask his name is Dumbledore or whatever, but it's Jeff. That's Jeff the Beer Wizard on cans. And yeah, having Jenna make the labels, we always get compliments on those, and so that was probably, that Tinder swipe was a good turning point for the brewery too. Having the Alberta Small Brewers Association and folks like Jason Foster and Owen Kirkcaldy, they decided it was time that our little Alberta industry could use its own awards. And it's a really fun party, and it's a fun way to, get feedback on your beers, because they get judged and they tell you, what they're tasting and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, we do submit beers to the beer awards, and it's a really fun event to attend, and it's fun to get. We've actually been more lucky at the Canadian Brewing Awards, the national one, than we have the Alberta one. I don't know what that says, but yeah, the Alberta Brewing Awards are coming up, and we're thankful to all the people who put all the work into that, because it gives you an excuse to wave your little flag. Oh, BS Sweat got a silver medal, and it's fun to, I think, for some people to see, like, oh, they've been recognized by some sort of official body. This beer must not suck, even if I don't quite understand much about it, So yeah, that's coming up, and we're looking forward to that. Yeah, the community in Edmonton. I think in Edmonton, especially sort of being up the road from Calgary, and everyone always going there to the mountains, and their beer scene was maybe a couple years ahead of us for a little while there. And I think people from Edmonton love Edmonton and we like supporting each other and getting out and supporting small local businesses. And so going to these community events to support um, the folks who support us, showing up to pour samples and just have a little extra draw to their event. Like we're happy to do that just to sort of, show them the same effort that they give to, include our beer in their restaurants and bars and events. And I think Edmontonians especially really like to stick together and know what's going on and help each other out.
Hi, my name is Reese Oswald. I'm one of the owners of Omen Brewing. We are a family-owned and operated business. It's my dad, my two brothers, and myself. Last name is Oswald, so we're the Oswald men. So we took the O and kind of added it, so that's how we got the name Omen. We started up the brewery here in Edmonton because it's our hometown, born and raised. My dad grew up here, we grew up here, so we figured what not a better place than the city we grew up in and love. We chose this location here because we looked all over the place, and the city had some weird zoning rules, and this was one of the only strips in this kind of area that you could actually set up a brewery. So this is kind of where we started, and shortly after we signed the lease here, we noticed that there's two other breweries that are opening up in this area, and the next thing you know, there's like this whole Happy Beer Street thing going on. So we started in 2018. We incorporated in 2017. It took about a year's worth of planning. We found this place the end of 2017, so the start of 2018. We then got our equipment set up, opened up the doors in December of 2018, and then kind of been going from there. So we're coming up to our 5-year anniversary here in December. Yeah, so we were home brewers before. We actually got into home brewing. We bought a discount beer kit from Liquidation World, and it's kind of how we started brewing. And from there, we kind of just kept going, and it grew from there. And my younger brother Spencer and I were kind of the ones who always liked to be brewing, and so we always wanted to open up a brewery, and it took some time, but here we are. So then after, we always wanted to open up a brewery, and the Alberta had some really weird rules around breweries, so it made it really difficult to open up. Then a few years back, they changed those rules, so we were able to actually get our foot in the door, and we figured that was the best time to start, and kind of went from there. And it's been slow start, but we've been growing every year. We're a pretty small brewery. It's all financed by ourselves. We don't have any outside investors. It's all personal loans and personal finances that have started up the brewery. So it's been a little bit of an endeavor, but it's been going fairly well. This is ran with myself, my two brothers, and our dad. So my dad, Tony, he's kind of the maintenance guy. He kind of comes in, helps clean up and make sure everything's running smoothly, helps out with packaging, keg cleaning, kind of where we need him to be. My older brother, Andrew, kind of helped out with the permitting side of things. He's kind of more of a silent investor now. He's pulled out, but he kind of still comes in and helps us out with any kind of legal things that we might need to get done. My brother, Spencer, he's our brewmaster. He's the one who does all the brewing and develops the recipes and kind of comes up with those nifty ideas. And then myself, I'm the guy who kind of just pay the bills, collect the money, deliver the beer, Just kind of do whatever needs to be done to just make sure everything keeps going. And then we have two wonderful staff bartenders, Omnia and Aiden. Without those two, I don't know where we'd be. They keep the bar running smoothly. So that's kind of a double-edged sword, profitable, because every time you start to make money, there's something else you could buy, right? So we find that we're always finding something else to buy to help the business grow more and more and more. But I'd say that we've seen positive growth every year since we've opened, except for maybe 2020. It was a little rough. But after that, it started to kind of come back. Yeah, so COVID, we really had to pivot with COVID. We were primarily just a taproom-based brewery before. We did some bottling, and we just primarily sold out of here. And then when COVID hit, we had to shut down the taproom. We were forced to kind of move into liquor stores, and so we started canning at that point. But we didn't really have enough money to buy a full-fledged canning machine, so we had a kind of one of those little express fill fillers in an October steamer. And so we'd have one guy who'd spend all day canning. You'd get 8 hours a day, and you'd get maybe 10 flats of beer, and you'd ship those off to a liquor store and do the whole thing again the next day. So it was really labor intensive, but it's kind of what you got to do, right? Yeah, so we're still predominantly a taproom focused brewery, but we do have a bigger canning system now, so we can can more of our products and get it out there. We do have some beers now in Liquor Connect, which are moving pretty steadily. So you can find us now in more liquor stores throughout Alberta, but they're still pretty small. So the amount that we can brew isn't enough to really compete with some of those bigger guys. We only have like a 10-barrel brew system, so put that in perspective, you get about 80-ish flats from a tank of beer. So 80 flats don't get you very far with the thousands of liquor stores that there are throughout Alberta. Liquor stores are pretty open to picking up local craft breweries, mainly like the boutique liquor stores. Anything that kind of focuses more on craft beer. I mean, the Alberta market is now really starting to demand craft beer, so they're starting to be more interested in bringing in stuff. When we first started approaching liquor stores, they were like, "Oh no, we're okay. We've got our shelves full," and they had their, main big brands. But now those have slowly been getting pushed over the side, and they've been making bigger space for craft beer. So that's been really good. We are in a few local restaurants. We're not too many because once again, with the small system, we usually can half and keg half, so we get about 40 some odd flats and about 10-ish kegs. So I mean, 10 kegs also supplying this tap room and restaurants. We don't get out very far, but we are in about 5 or 6 local restaurants around the city, which have been really good. Right. So we get all of our malting stuff from Alberta here. So we get it through Country Malt, Canada Malting. They source their stuff throughout Alberta. There's some that comes from Saskatchewan, and some hop. Most of the hops come from BC, but we do get some of the Alberta hops as well. It's all kind of Canadian-based stuff. We only have 1 or 2 beers that we make that we bring in sort of German-style malts, but most of that barley is grown here in Alberta, shipped to BC or shipped to Germany, malted there, and then shipped back. But you get a different flavor profile when you get the traditional German-style malts than you do with the Canadian stuff for those specific beers. Yeah, getting the stuff from overseas does cost more, but we find that we just kind of charge a flat rate for most of our beers. I mean, certain ones in cans we do charge a little bit extra for, but for the most part, they're all relatively the same price. And we find that what we kind of lose in the more expensive beers, we make up for in the less expensive beers. So we kind of focus more on darker styles of beer. We wanted something that kind of sets us apart from other breweries. So we kind of started off with the darker stuff. Some of our more popular beers would be our Blueberry Session Ale. So that's a darker wheat ale. And we added some blueberry to it. Gives it a nice flavor and aroma. It's really popular. It's probably our most popular beer. And then we have our Irish Red Ale. So it's not too dark, but it's kind of on that verge. So it's a real nice, easy, malty forward beer. Very little hops. It's nice, clean, easy drinking. Then we do have some pale ales as well, and some stouts. So our spilt milk stout is probably our flagship beer. So we serve that one on nitro here in the tap room, so it gives it a more creamier mouthfeel. But we add a little bit of lactose sugar to it, so it gives it a sweeter edge. So it's not as bitter or as roasty as you get from some of the other stouts. So that one's really quite popular as well. And then we do have like a gluten-free beer as well. So our Behave, we make that out of local honey and sorghum. And then we use ginger and marsh peel rather than hops. So it comes out kind of tasting completely different. It doesn't taste really like a beer, but it doesn't taste like a mead or cider either. So it's kind of its own unique thing. So those are kind of the 4 main ones that we have available at Liquor Connect. So that's any liquor store can really pick those up. And then for some of our seasonals, we're coming up to October here. So we got our Oktoberfest beer coming out. It's our Marzen. So that is a true traditional German Marzen. We brew that back in March and we lager it all the way till September. And then we release it. So that's one of the beers that we buy our malt from Germany for. It's traditional German malt and hops. So it comes out tasting as close as you can get to the stuff in Munich. The only thing that's really Albertan here is the water. And then we do have a couple of seasonal stouts that we'll be bringing out here pretty soon as well. So with our 5-year anniversary coming out, we always like to bring out our Black Forest Cake Stout. It's our favorite type of birthday cake. So we got it's a nice dark cherry chocolate kind of stout with a little bit of vanilla cream at the end. And then we also have our Winter Warmer that we'll be bringing out as well, which is our kind of spiced beer. It's more of a Christmassy style ale. It's got that nice cinnamon, ginger, cloves, cherries, and almond kind of flavor to it. So it's almost like a mulled wine in beer style. And those ones really go over really well in the colder months. So we don't really do anything to treat our water. We just filter it through a charcoal filter to get some of that chlorine taste out. But Edmonton water has been really good. We haven't had any issues with it. I would say it's some of the best water in the world. But I mean, I'm not a water connoisseur. So we were kind of fortunate. We kind of did a lot of this stuff on like a leap of faith, and we researched our equipment, but our equipment was quite expensive. And then we found this other company that we buy our stuff from. I'll give them a plug if I'm allowed. Yeah. So we bought our stuff from Pre-Tech Canada, and their equipment was really good. We've been very pleased with it. There was no reviews on it. There's nothing. We just kind of were like, oh, the prices look good. Let's take it. And fortunately enough, it turned out to be really good. We know a bunch of other breweries that bought equipment, and it wasn't quite as good. So we're very fortunate that way. Other than that, I mean, yeah, there's things that we do differently. There always would do stuff differently, but at the same time, that's kind of how you learn and grow, right? It's fun to kind of do things without knowing what you're doing. We did as much research as we could online, and we're all self-taught. So I mean, we came from a trades background, so really all we knew what to do is labor and sweat equity. So that's what we brought to the table, and that's what got us to where we are today. Working with family is fun. I always tell people it's kind of something that I would never want to do again, but at the same time, I'd never want to start up another business without family. So you're kind of it's kind of that catch-22. I've worked with my dad my entire life, and my brother and I and my dad actually all worked for the same electrical company before we started the brewery. So we've worked together. We've done home renovations, all sorts of stuff. So we're kind of used to that dynamic. I think the biggest thing for my dad at the start was learning that he didn't know what was going on in the brewing industry, but neither did we. So it was kind of a learning curve for everyone, and it was just kind of relinquishing that bit of control that he used to have as the guy who was in charge of running the jobs. Yeah, so my brother Spencer does most of the brewing. Well, about 99% of it. So he's our main brewmaster. He's the one who develops most of the recipes and gets everything going with that. I help out a little bit on some of the other beers, mostly like the gluten-free one, the Behave, or any of the other beers that kind of need a little bit of flavoring to them. I kind of pick up the back end after he's kind of done the main part of it. So he's the one who kind of makes most of the magic happen. He's our brewmaster, self-taught, homebrew kind of thing. And that's kind of the whole point, was for him to kind of run the show with the beer, and then I'll just kind of make sure everything stays running smoothly as best we can. So having Beer Street's been kind of neat. So when we were opening up, we opened up shortly after Sea Change, and so they got their release around the same time we got ours. So we didn't actually know that they were going to be on the same block as us. We both knew that Alley Cat was here because they've been here for like 25, 30 years, somewhere around there. And so we thought, being close to Alley Cat would be nice. And then when Sea Change opened up, we were like, oh, great, we're next to another brewery. That could be good too. And then when the Monolith opened up, then we were like, oh, there's another brewery. And then Ben Stick moved in, and then now Ale Architect. It's just been growing, and every time a new brewery opens up, you see a new wave of customers come in. It's been great for business. I mean, exposure-wise, it's been more and more people found out that we exist just through those other breweries. However, we do find that with people hopping around a little bit, you do get a little bit less of a sales point per customer, but you get way more customers coming in. So that, you take which you can, right? It's been really good, and we really quite enjoy working together with the other breweries. And it's that whole idea of when one business is on its own, find one, you find them all. So that's been really good for us, right? Like it's with Sea Changes. With Sea Change having the advertising space that they have, and Ben Stick as well, and some of the bigger guys, we get to piggyback off of that, right? So that works off for us, right? And then I realized too, I forgot to mention Long Roof. Long Roof is in this team at Beer Street as well. Can't mention everybody and not mention them. Those guys have been great too. So everybody works together really well, and it goes over really nicely. Yeah, so we were at the Zoo Brew. Yeah, the Zoo Brew is a great event. That's one of my favorite events to do. It's outdoors at the zoo, drinking beers. Can't get much better than that. We also do the Edmonton Beer Fest. We did the Calgary Beer Fest this year as well. Those events are always fun. They get you good exposure, get you out there. We do a lot of community, local events. So we do some farmers markets, and I've got an event that I'm doing at the Edmonton Valley, the Snow Valley Ski Club. They'll be doing something down there, and then we do some stuff with the Kenilworth Community League and the Rich Community League and the Ottawa Community League. So we kind of stick to that sort of area that we're in and do stuff through there, and it goes over really well. So we don't enter into a lot of competitions, mainly because the cost to enter is quite high for each beer, and so we feel like that money can be spent better elsewhere. We don't need to have medals to brag about how good we are. People come in to try the beer, they know it's good. We have entered into a few competitions in the past. Some of the smaller ones, not the same size as like the Canadian Brew Awards or something like that, but and we've won some medals. So we've got a couple of golds and some silvers under our belts, which we know the beer is quite tasty and good. So, well, there is ultimately a saturation point on everything, right? So if there is too many businesses that come in, it will eventually get oversaturated. But for right now, I don't think we've hit that mark yet. What it'll be in 5 years, I can't say, but for right now, our plan is to just kind of keep growing and keep going forward. So for us personally, in 5 years, I'd say I'd like to see us expanding into a much bigger kind of operation, bigger tanks, more canning, more restaurants, stuff like that. Just I don't really know. I guess just hard work and being willing to tough it out. I mean, it's easy to fold up when times get tough, but to persevere through the tough times just makes you stronger. And if you can keep moving forward and keep growing, then that's kind of really all you can ask for. Uh, you just take it a day at a time, a week at a time, a month at a time, a year, and just kind of keep going. I feel like every day you're learning something new, and every year it feels like you've achieved more than you thought you'd ever possibly achieve. And I mean, working with my family has been huge too. Having my brother, his brewing skills have improved immensely since we started, and they've been just top notch. And he just keeps making better, newer, better beers. And as they get more popular, then we just kind of keep growing from there. As a born and raised Edmontonian, I have to say that Calgary sucks. No, I'm kidding. Calgary's great, but like I love being an Albertan. Like being Albertan is one of the greatest things that I could possibly ask for, is being a Canadian. I mean, I sound kind of pompous saying this, but it's one of the greatest provinces in Canada, and Edmonton is the capital city of that province. So, being in Edmonton, you're the best city in the best province of Canada. Yeah, I do. I think Edmonton, it does support the industry, and I think it took them a while to kind of understand what it was. But now that they're starting to learn, every year there's more and more Edmontonians who are turning towards craft beer, and it's getting better. Like we just did a small little music festival outside of Edmonton there, just in like Derwent area, and it's like a small farm town, and they wanted craft beer because they realized that like Coors Light just doesn't cut it anymore.